We're in a 2005 Dodge Ram 3500 with the Cummins 5.9. I'm going to show you how to do a remote starter the easy way with this kit that I've come up with. Okay, we're in our 2005 Ram 3500. It's got the Cummins 5.9 diesel. We're going to go ahead and do a remote starter. First, we're going to disassemble the vehicle. Going to remove the Phillips screws from the bottom under dash. It's 2 screws, and we'll be able to just pop this right out of here. We're going to locate the main ignition harness, which comes down through this white loop right here. We're going to undo the loop and just pull the harness outside of the loop so we can access the wires. Okay, we're going to be using what's called Posi-Tap connectors on this vehicle. We're going to screw these onto our wires, and it's going to allow us to tap our wires with minimal damage to the wire, and it's going to be pretty much error-free connections without marring up our wires, and they're reusable, and we can take them apart and remove devices without having to take the tap off and change things around here. So they are reusable, require no tools. We're going to go ahead and get started. The Posi-Taps come in different sizes. Basically have a large, a medium, and a small. Okay, we can look right up here. We can see the wires coming out of the back of the ignition switch plug. Just going to cut this tape away here. Careful not to score the wires. I'm going to take another couple of bands of tape off here to give me a little working room. Okay, so we're going to leave it like that, and we're going to go ahead from here. We're looking for 2 red wires as our positive feeds. Actually, we're going to use this red and the red with a blue stripe. And we can verify that both of these wires have 12 volts on them with the ignition in the off position. So these are the first 2 wires we're going to go ahead and apply our Posi-Taps to. Okay, we're going to unscrew our Posi-Tap, and we're going to slip the grooved end around the wire at the point where we want to tap our wire. We're now going to screw in the connector and pierce the wire. These connectors can be used over and over, and they do literally no damage to the wire when they're removed. We're going to go ahead and we're going to put it back on. We're going to tighten them down. We're going to do the second one. So we may add another power tap for an optional relay that we're going to have to use because of the power demands of this vehicle. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put 2 Posi-Taps on one of the power wires. And when we're done, we're going to basically turn these to the side here. Okay, we have an ignition 1 wire color as pink and white. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to locate the pink and white wire, which is right here. And we're going to apply a medium Posi-Tap to this wire. And we're going to do the same for the pink with a green stripe and the pink with a yellow. The pink with light green is ignition 2. And the pink with yellow is an accessory 2. Okay, now we're going to apply a large Posi-Tap to the blue wire. The dark blue is listed as an accessory 1. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to apply the Posi-Tap to this wire also. And then we're going to apply a medium Posi-Tap to our starter wire. Quite a few connections that must be made for this vehicle to start correctly. The Posi-Taps will help us with this, doing it in a neat fashion that doesn't destroy our wiring. Okay, here's our primary harness. Nice thing about these connectors is, these connectors is you don't have to put anything on the wires. We just stripped off about a 1/2 inch of wire at the end. I've also rigged up a high current relay to plug into our unit. The reason for that is the heater circuit draws an immense amount of current. So we're going to have all the current pass through this relay and not through the remote starter. The trend is for vehicles to use less current, so remote starter relays aren't as heavy duty as they used to be. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to open up our Posi-Tap end, which we unscrew the end here, and now we can slip our power wire into our positive red wire, and once we slide it in and push it in, we tighten this collar down, and that will lock our wire in. We've now made our connection. We're going to go ahead and we're going to lock into our heater circuit or our accessory one the same way. Loosen the collar, press the wire in, tighten the collar down. We're going to crank them pretty good. They are solid. You have to make sure you crank them so the wire doesn't pull out. After you're done, you can give a pull on each wire and make sure they're in secure. So we've gone ahead and we've installed our high current relay. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and we're going to install our main harness. We're going to start with the power wires. Just going to loosen the collar on our Posi-Tap, and we're going to go ahead and we're going to insert our power wire in firmly and tighten the collar down. And we're going to pull on it and test it. And we're going to do our second positive power wire. And we're going to do our primary ignition or ignition 1. And so on and so forth. I'm not liking the fit of our blue Posi-Taps where our wires come in, so we're going to replace them. We're going to use yellows on all of the wires, and that's the nice thing about these connectors, because we can remove them in a second and we haven't done any damage to the wire. And I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to replace everything with yellow. Okay, we've switched over to yellow, and when this kit is released, I'm going to adjust the input size of the medium connector, probably replace it with a different connector. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to insert our ignition 1 and tighten it. Now we're going to do our ignition 2. Ignition 1, by the way, was pink with a white stripe. Ignition 2 is pink with a green stripe. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to tighten that in. And we're going to do our starter wire, which is brown on the Crimestopper, and we're going to go to our yellow wire. We make sure we hold the wire in while we tighten. Okay, now we have our gray wire from the Crimestopper. We're going to go to the pink with the yellow stripe. Pink with the yellow, the smaller, is an accessory 2. There is a pink with yellow that's a 10 gauge also, as you'll see in the data sheet if you buy this kit. Now, depending on the vehicle model, these colors could vary around a little bit. Pretty much that's about it for our main ignition harness. We're going to go ahead and continue on to our secondary harness. Okay, we've grouped our main ignition harness wires. We put them over on this side of this harness, and we've installed the harness back into the loop here. we're going to go ahead and we're going to route our secondary harness up our main harness. Okay, so our secondary harness, we're actually going to use a Crimestopper SP-502, which is a full alarm system. Okay, we're going to be installing the Crimestopper SP-502, which is an alarm system with remote start. It's a two-way with an LED or LCD screen. I have the secondary harness. We're going to get a lot of our inputs and outputs through data, and we're not going to need this, but I don't want to maim the harness because I don't want to have this in my truck for too long. We're going to go ahead and we're just going to deal with the wires we need. A ground, a parking light polarity select, our horn wire, and our parking light wire. I'm going to actually make this just honk the horn instead of having a siren and all that. I just want a little protection when I have my things in this truck, and you know, I want to lock it and know that nobody's going to go in it. Now this is a black key RAM, which means it has no transponder. If you have a gray key, then you have to do a few more things to make this system work. Okay, I'm going to parallel the harnesses, our primary and our secondary. I'm going to work the connections up. I want to get to the point where I can just activate the remote starter and check our connections. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to ground the system, and then I'm going to plug it in and test it. Now I'm going to use this Phillips screw right here for a ground. I'm going to loosen it a little bit, and I'm going to go ahead and ground the unit here. Now I should be able to plug in and test our unit. Okay, we've also plugged in our high current relay plugs, the white plug and the blue plug, into the SP-502. We're ready to do our test start. We're going to go ahead and we're going to activate the remote starter. So we have our ABS light staying on, which means we have an incorrect connection. We're going to go ahead and we're going to change our connection. That would come from this yellow wire right here. We need to go from this yellow wire, or pink with a yellow stripe wire, over to this pink with a yellow stripe wire, which is slightly smaller gauge. So it's the smallest gauge pink with a yellow stripe. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to switch that wire over. We're going to put it in this connector and lock it down. And we're going to test our remote starter again. Slight over crank of the starter until we put the module in. Light should go off now. Okay, now we have everything working correctly. We're going to go ahead and we're going to shut off our remote starter by pressing the start button on the remote again. We're going to continue on with the rest of the connections. Okay, we're going to locate our horn wire, one of our peripheral connections. In this harness here, coming down, we have a dark green with a violet stripe. We're going to touch it with our test light, and we should get the horn activation. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to put a Posi-Tap on this wire. I'm going to go ahead and use a blue one. It should be adequate for this. Okay, so we can tie our horn wire into that. Also going to ground our parking light select because we're going to use a negative activation for the parking lights. So we want to use our polarity select to ground this so it will supply a negative when the parking lights are activated. So we're going to go ahead and pull this screw out, our ground screw, and we're going to ground both the black and the red with black to this screw. We've applied our tap. We're going to run our brown wire with a white stripe up, parallel it with the rest of our wires, and we're going to terminate it at the horn. Again, no tools required for the Posi-Taps. It's going to loosen the collar, slide the wire in, and tighten the collar back down. And we should have horn control. We can lock. We're going to install our AL-CA. Even though this vehicle doesn't have a transponder, we're going to obtain convenience features, I guess you would call them, through the AL-CA. We're not going to have to run a TAC wire out and go to the computer for a TAC signal. We're going to monitor the doors through data through this module. And if it had a transponder, it would also control the immobilizer. If the vehicle had a transponder, you would do this wiring, and I'll put a link in the upper corner of your video showing you what video you would use to do this actual interface here at the immobilizer plug. Ours is going to be a little different because we don't have an immobilizer on this vehicle. We're going to obtain our data wire, our J1850 wire, at the diagnostic plug. We're going to need to have an ignition signal off of the primary ignition, or our pink wire from the Crimestopper, our pink and white on the vehicle. And then we're going to have an analog lock signal, which is going to be down here at the BCM. I'm going to show you where these three connections are going to be made. We're going to go ahead and we're going to do our ignition connection first. I'm going to just apply another Posi lock, a blue one this time, to the ignition wire. So we're going to go ahead and do that to the primary ignition. Then I'm going to put a red Posi lock on the J1850 wire down here. Okay, so our J1850 is a white with violet, and it's located at pin 2 on the diagnostic plug. I'm catching it up here as it comes out of the diagnostic plug. As you can see, the diagnostic plug is located right here on the vehicle. We're going to move down under the dash so I can show you where the analog lock wire is. Use our chart right here, and we're looking at RAM pickup 04 to 5. And we're going to have purple RAM pickup 2 without alarm. We don't have an OEM alarm, so it's note number 2. It's going to be purple with dark green. Okay, we're down under the dash, and we're looking at this harness right here that goes underneath this big long plug. We're actually going to look for the violet with dark green. Okay, we've located a violet with dark green, and we followed it down to the plug, and our pin would be right here. I don't know if you can see that. I'll try to get a little bit of light here. I pulled it to the side, and it looked like we're the second row down the first pin. And the way I test it is I put my hand on the lock switch, and you can hear the locks clicking. I'm going to click them back and forth, cycle them. Now when I put a regular test light up in this pin, the locks won't respond when I try to cycle them from the switch. So I'm going to try to cycle them from the switch. And I have no response, and when I remove this, I have response. This verifies that as a lock wire. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put a Posi-Tap on this wire, but I'm going to keep the tap up a little bit here. So go ahead and I'm going to lock this tap on, and then we'll make our connections. Okay, since I'm under the dash, I'm going to go ahead and terminate the yellow wire to our Posi lock first. Again, I'm just going to loosen the collar. I'm going to have all the wires go into the connector. I'm going to push them in tight, and I'm going to tighten the collar, making the connection for the analog lock. Pull it up over the dash. Second connection I'm going to do is the J1850 connection. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to strip a small portion of the wire here. I'm going to insert it into the connector. To push it down in and tighten the collar. Okay, the last connection I'm going to make is the ignition connection. The AL-CA needs to see the ignition when the key comes on for programming purposes and for operational purposes. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to terminate that There, now we have all three of our connections made for our AL-CA. And at the end, we can go through and neaten things up. For video purposes, we're just routing the wires this way. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to plug into our AL-CA. The appropriate plugs, they only fit one way. The AL-CA will be tethered through a data cable to the SP-502. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to program the AL-CA. Okay, we're going to go ahead and we're going to place our key in the ignition, turn the ignition to the run position. Our AL-CA will light up red and then go green and go out to signify that it is programmed to the vehicle. We're now going to shut the key off. Now, one of the signals we've obtained through the AL-CA is the tachometer signal. This is a diesel truck. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to show you how to set a tachometer reference. It's the first thing we're going to want to do so that we can get a good exact crank time on our starter. So we're going to start the vehicle up. We're going to press our program button on the 502 5 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Unit's going to honk back with 5 honks, confirming it's entering program mode. We're then going to move to option 1 by pressing the button 1 time. We're going to get a honk confirmation. Now we're going to hold the brake pedal until we have a honk, and by holding the brake pedal, it will set the tachometer reference when the vehicle honks, and it will also confirm that we have data communication, because remember, we've never made a physical connection to the brake. That's being done through data. So I'm going to go ahead and shut the key off, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to activate the remote starter. Now you can listen and you can hear the actual crank time here and how the starter releases. Nice and clean. If you listened earlier, we had a slight overcrank. So now we have a tachometer reference, and we should also have lock and unlock control of our vehicle. And we do. I've successfully am locking and unlocking the doors. So let's shut our vehicle down. Okay, so there's our lock. There's lock. And there's unlock. And you can kind of see how the two-way works. We're going to go ahead and we're going to activate the remote starter. And I've got it set to honk the horn when it activates. We're going to watch our dash. I haven't set the diesel glow plug delay. I'm going to go ahead and do that next. Okay, there are two options I'm going to do right now. I'm going to do the diesel glow plug delay, which is option 23, and my selection is going to be selection 1 for 10 seconds. If we go down, I'm going to turn on our turbo timer also, option 31, and we're going to set our turbo timer for 3 minutes. So we're going to do 23-1, 31-3. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to put the key in the ignition, turn the ignition to the run position, throw that key away, and we're going to enter programming mode by pressing 5 times on the program button. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 chirps, entering program mode. Now we're going to press it 23 times, counting chirp for each press. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. Now we'll press the brake 1 time, and that'll be selection 1, or we can push the lock button on the remote. I prefer to press the brake. That gives me a 10-second delay. Now we're going to go right to feature 31. So we're at 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31. Turbo timer, selection 3. We're going to press the brake once, press the brake again, and then press the brake again. And we have a 3-minute turbo timer that's built into this also. You know, shut the key off and remove it. if you notice the horn didn't honk every time, the horn on these Chryslers requires a long horn pulse. So sometimes during programming, it may not honk the horn, but you can hear the unit clicking. I've increased the horn pulse time before I did this to 40 milliseconds, in which I would do that if I was going to ship this unit to you. That would already be done. The glow plug delay, if I know it's a diesel, and the turbo timer would also be activated if I know it's a diesel. So if it doesn't come activated, you can go ahead and you can set the features you want. One thing that has to remain the same is the data port protocol. Has to stay on OFA. It cannot be changed to Evo, or the module will not communicate with the remote starter. So if you're changing features yourself, don't touch that one. Okay, so we're outside the beast right now, and I've got the doors locked, which means the alarm is set. And remember, I said we're going to monitor the doors through data, so I'm going to open the door with a key with the alarm set to prove that we have an alarm. Output, and we're getting notification on our remote that our door has opened. So we're monitoring door triggers through data. Now I'm going to start the vehicle. We've activated the remote starter. We're waiting for the delay to expire. I programmed a 10-second diesel glow plug delay, and we should get a crank and start. And there we have it. I'm going to go ahead and shut it off. Okay. Just going to move on. I'm just going to show you that we have a shock sensor also. I'm going to unlock the vehicle. Okay, if we're using the alarm functions and we want impact detection, we simply plug this impact detector, which is dual zone impact, 2 separate adjustments, one for pre-warning and one for a if the vehicle is entered or a heavy impact. We'll actually set the alarm off, and we just plug this into the alarm, and we go ahead and we mount this device, and then we dial it in using the screws. You see how I'm just barely touching it? Light touch will give me a pre-warn. Heavier touch will give me an activation. Blue light is a pre-warn, red light is the activation. Now we're going to talk about the parking lights here. We're going to add parking light control to this, which we have our parking light wire, and we're going to run our parking light wire up our main harness, and then we're going to go over to the light switch. If you have auto lamps, you have to interrupt the light switch or it won't work while it's in the auto position. This doesn't have auto lamps, so we should be able to directly connect to it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to just create a little gap here, and then I'm going to pop this out. This will give us access to our light switch. Now we're looking for a white wire with a green stripe. I'm going to go ahead and unplug the switch. Remember, when we unplug the switch, it's going to make a chime like it is. There may be 2 green, white with greens, because we have a cargo light here too. So we're gonna figure out exactly which one we need for this vehicle. Okay, we're gonna go ahead and we're just gonna have to remove a little bit of tape. I'm gonna carefully score it. And we have our white with our light green wire right here. We're trying to separate it. There appears to be only one white with light green at this harness. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to put a tap on this wire. Remember, you have to reinstall the light switch before you test it. It's not going to work unless the switch is plugged in. So we'll get our tap on here. And we're going to run our wire up. I'm going to get it up through this opening. trim it a little bit, but remember there's a resistor soldered in the wire, so you can't cut the resistor out or it won't work correctly. It's a ground through resistance to activate this. And so the shoulder size of this connector is not right. I'm going to use a blue connector. This kit is just going to be released with these Posi-Taps. So I'm going to have to get my gauges down right before I start shipping these. Okay, so we have a blue on there, and should be able to accept this a lot better. I'm going to strip this fresh. Pop it in and lock it. Okay, remember, we're going to plug our switch back in. The chiming will stop, and now we're going to check. Okay, we have parking light control, and we're going to look at the front. And the Crimestopper will hold your lights on for 30 seconds, lighting your way to the vehicle when you disarm it. So we have the fog lights coming on doing that. Okay, I've mounted my impact detector with a screw right here so that I could adjust it very easily. And I'm going to route the wiring now and neaten everything up. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and mount my antenna and route the wire. Stick the antenna to the windshield. Going to pull down on the headliner gently and tuck the antenna wire under it. Gonna get all the way to the A-pillar of the vehicle. I'm gonna use my plastic tool at this point. Tuck the wire in. Pull the gasket. Pretty much run it right down the gasket gap here. You get below the dash. Pop the side panel. Right down through and come out on the bottom. Okay, just going to try to give you a look at the finished product. We ran our wires up through the loop here, the factory loop. We just put our extra wires up here that I didn't want to cut off. I have our AL-CA sitting on top of that. And then down underneath, we have our unit strapped up right up here. I don't have my valet button mounted, and I didn't do the LED light. You know, if you want to mount these things, I believe it's a 5/16 hole, and it's pretty self-explanatory. This system should be compatible to start by 3-press if you have an OEM remote. I don't have an OEM remote. I lost it, so I can't verify that, but the firmware is supposed to be able to activate the remote starter from 3-press. So whatever variation you purchase, I've shown you all the wires you'll need to access to be able to install it. Okay, we put everything back together and we've adjusted our impact detector I'm going to show you how that works. Light impact will trigger pre-warning. Heavier impact will trigger the alarm. Now I've got it set up so that it's not going off every 2 seconds, so you have to have a sufficient amount of impact before the alarm will actually go off. But each time I'm getting notifications on the handheld remote of pre-warning and if the vehicle alarm has gone off. And I'll also just show you the two-way action of this remote. Shows you that the doors are locked, doors are unlocked. There is a panic feature holding the lock button down. Panic mode is indicated on the remote, and we can start it by pressing and holding the key button. We have our 10-second diesel delay. And I haven't set the time on this remote. It is not 1:44 a.m. It says we'll start, and our run time is 20 minutes. We have a plume of smoke indicating the vehicle is running.